Hello, students, and welcome to our new series on analyzing English, where we're going to focus on different videos, such as on YouTube and other platforms, where we can discuss how words are used, whether the different dialects in English make sense, or whether there are certain word choices that are unfamiliar or different, and how do we compare between different dialects or different countries in terms of their use of the English language. In this video, for example, I'm going to focus on a video clip on YouTube. So this is not copyrighted, I hope, from the American satirist and writer David Sedaris on irritating word choices. Now, David is a well-known novelist. He travels across the United States, and on his recent trip around the country, he discovered that there are certain words and how they're used in American English vernacular that kind of bothered him. Now, I'm not going to say if I agree or disagree with David, but I want to go through this video with you. I'll pause it here and there in terms of how David addresses these word choices in the American English dialect. And then I want you to decide at home, do you agree with David? Do you disagree with David? And do you agree with the way the word is used? Or do you think David has a point in terms of his own perspective? So it's only a 2-minute video. I'm going to pause to discuss at certain points, but I want you to follow along and watch with me. So here we go.
I travel across America twice a year, making lots of stops along the way, and each time the country feels a little different. On this latest trip, I noticed an increased use of the word perfect, not as an adjective, a perfect spinach souffle, a perfect figure eight, but as a response to a statement. We're on the 8:30 flight. Perfect! I'll have the eggs over easy. Perfect. I don't mind perfect, it's just something I noticed. I also noticed a lot more men addressing me.
So let me pause there to discuss the first word, perfect, which is an adjective in English and in American English, of course. Now, David is often referring to how the word is used as an adjective to describe a noun. So, like a perfect stew, or a perfect soup, or a perfect salad, as he says. But here, in regards to choices such as booking a trip or a flight on an airline, or deciding what to eat, the server or waitress goes perfect, or the check-in agent for the airline goes perfect. So he doesn't like how this word is used just to exclaim when something goes well, or when something goes right, or when somebody makes a choice. So his opinion here is that perfect should be used as an adjective, and solely as an adjective. Instead of saying terrific or great or wonderful or good or awesome, David thinks that those words would be preferable generally than using perfect. Now, perfect can be used to exclaim when you're really, really, really happy or thrilled or pleasantly surprised about something. But David notices in his recent trip around the United States that it's become overused and is used to describe when somebody makes a choice or when something goes well. So that's his first point here. Let's continue.
Me as boss. I'd like to check out of my room. All right, boss. Why does that bother me so, I wondered. In a restaurant one morning, my waiter came around with a coffee pot. Top you off, boss? I don't want to be a pill, I said, but please don't call me that. What would you want me to call you instead, he asked. Sir would work, I told him. I mean, it's what I'd call you. I thought for a moment that Mr. was an option, though that's what a child would.
So David here, he's not he's at a getting coffee, or he's hearing from other people calling him boss, but he's not their boss. Like when we use boss in English, it's to describe a supervisor, somebody in a position of authority in a hierarchy, usually the employee-employer relationship. But here, a waiter is calling him boss when he fills up David's coffee, which happens in the United States as a cultural custom when you get free refills, usually at a coffee house or at a diner. But top you off, boss, is kind of weird. Like sir is kind of the formal English in the United States, especially for addressing someone. So David would call a waiter sir, or a waitress ma'am, but the waiter would call David in response boss, which is a little strange to David because David is not that man's boss. So sir would be good. Mister, as David goes on to explain, is a little childish. because it's like when a child talks to somebody who's older as Mister. But sir is the proper vernacular in American English to describe somebody who you're relying upon or you're helping out with. It's a sign of respect, like sir or ma'am is kind of their title when you don't know their name. But boss is a little bit weird for David because he's not that man's boss and he's not in a position of authority. Let's continue.
Say, hey, mister, you dropped something. It's at least earnest, though. There always seems to be a smirk behind boss. It's like addressing a woman as princess. So you'll have a latte and anything else, princess? My father used to call other men sonny. Not if they were kids or wore suits and ties, but only if they were his age and pumped his gas or carried his golf clubs. It made my sisters and me cringe. It was like he was rubbing their noses in something. Chief had a
So let's go over princesses. Similar to boss, princess is kind of like it's a good term to call somebody, but it also can be demeaning. So boss is a little bit demeaning because to David, he's not the boss. He's not that man's boss. So why would he be called boss? Similar to what David goes on to explain shortly after, chief is kind of like boss. It's a position of authority or a leadership position. David would prefer sir because David, as an older man, should be called sir, and he would call somebody else who he's relying upon as sir. But princess is like kind of making fun of somebody. Boss is, in my view, similar to David. Boss is kind of a slang or a slur. Kind of means like you're kind of pretending that someone is above you when they're really not. We're kind of all equals. So in the American vernacular, calling somebody a boss or a chief is a little bit too formal. The hierarchy isn't there, so why would you call someone boss or chief? So sir would be all right, even Mister if David is being addressed by a child or teenager. But David would prefer sir, as he goes on to explain. It's like calling somebody princess when they haven't earned that title. It's kind of making fun of that person. So David, I think, has a good point. But you don't have to agree or disagree. But he makes he understands the way certain words should be used, and such as perfect or boss or chief or Mister. And Sonny, last point is Sonny is an old-fashioned American English term, usually used for younger people, but David's father would use it for people around the same age. So you don't want to use Sonny for somebody older than you. Sonny is usually by an older person, man or woman, to talk about a young man or a young person, usually a young boy or teenager. But you don't. Sonny has gone out of fashion. You don't really call people Sonny anymore. But that's what David's father in that time used. So words can change. The usage of those words can change, and Sonny can be used for people at the same age. But like David said, it was a little weird because Sonny is usually used for people younger than you, if you're an older person.
similar ring to it, as did sport. In England, you hear mate. Who do you say mate to? I asked my British friend Dave. People, I think, will say it to me, he answered. In that regard, it's like man. Hey, man, you dropped your wallet. I always thought sir came after man, and I'm hoping that boss is just a passing phase like dude was. In the meantime, I'll continue to gently correct people, and in response, they'll nod the way you do when you're only half listening and say, perfect.
So I thought that was a rather good video. And as David explains at the end, he likes to correct people's word choice in American English. We're talking about mainly American English vocabulary, but David compares certain words that in the American vernacular, like man, to mate, which is kind of the similar meaning, maybe not the same, but sport, which is more the British English vernacular, sometimes American English, but sport is kind of like mate. But certain words like sunny and sport have gone out of style to be replaced by man and now boss. And David would just wish that certain words like perfect and boss and sunny would be used in the right manner, in his view. But language is constantly evolving. The English language is constantly changing. So is the American English dialect as well. So I want you to keep that in mind. You don't have to agree with David, but I want you to analyze the video, re-watch this video, and decide Do you think these words that David brings up should be used in a specific context, just as an adjective, or just to address someone formally? Should they be used or not, like boss or chief, or is sir or man better? And then think about how certain words in American English are not used, like in British English. I mean, for example, man. You don't really hear people in the UK or Australia use man. They would say mate. It's a good term of endearment for someone that is kind of like a friend or somebody you get along with. Whereas in American English, we used to use dude, but that's kind of not as popular as it used to be to express it. Now it's been replaced by man or bro. But man is kind of the proper term. So that's what I like about this video. It talks about ways that he thinks the word should be used, whether but as American society has changed, so has the word choices. And there's comparisons that can be made to British English. So I want to do more videos to this extent to focus on American and British English, and also analyzing the word choices and how we use them in sentences, or terms of generational word choices, how it differs, like sunny versus sir versus chief. So each generation has their own take, excuse me, on the English language. So thank you for watching this first video. I hope there'll be many more focusing on analyzing English language use in these videos. David Sedaris is a great satirist. I really enjoyed this video. It's only 2 minutes. So if you have any questions or have any comments, please let us know. Hopefully you like this video. Hit that subscribe button if you want to be kept in a loop when we have other analyzing English videos. My name is Ben with English from A to Z, and I'll see you in the next video. And remember, to subscribe to our newsletter, go to our website, www.englishfromatozee.com. Thank you so much, and have a good evening. Bye-bye.